All right, everyone, welcome back to Conversations with Horned Frogs. This is our second episode. As we promised last week, we have a special guest here with us this week. She's in the education field, and she's also a TCU Horned Frog. She's going to tell us a little about herself, but her name is Megan Williams. She's an assistant principal here in Fort Worth. So, Megan, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, your ties to TCU, since this is a Conversation with Horned Frogs, and a little bit about your career.
Yeah, so I started my college career at TCU and graduated in 2013 and had no idea what I wanted to do with myself.
Sure.
So I decided to get a master's in communication, the same degree I got my bachelor's in,
Okay.
and I taught in that program. So that's what led me to education.
Sure.
I went into that program and I went, man, I really like the teaching part of this program, but I really hate the research.
Sure.
It didn't jive with me. So at that time I said, I'm going to go into public education. It's really what I love. I was like, man, I always wanted to be a math teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go be a math teacher. So
Good strategy.
went and did that. I was a math teacher for 5 years. Got my master's in educational leadership from the University of North Texas as well.
Okay.
During that time, and then now I've been an assistant principal now for 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years. If my math serves me correct, that's the fall of 2020.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there's been some stuff going on in the world. I'm not sure if you've heard the last couple years. So, and I'm not reading from the script. Just FYI, everyone. Here's a couple notes, but we're just gonna have a conversation. So I'm actually really interested in. You started as an assistant principal in the heart of the pandemic. So,
Yep.
what was your strategy as a leader to get through the early part of the pandemic? Obviously now it's a little different, but through the dark days of the pandemic.
Well, it was really taking everything day by day. We came into school and it was just put out the latest fire, contact trace the latest case. That was kind of what we did. But also we were really grateful and tried to be really gracious with everybody that we work with, because as much as my principal and I and all of our office staff tried to hold up the school as much as we could.
Mm-hmm.
Our teachers were on the front lines with our students every day in the classrooms, and our custodians and our cafeteria workers and our maintenance crew and everybody that was just making our school run. It was so important that we were just thankful for everything that they did. And it's interesting, you take away everything in education that all of the perks of being in education, like all the potlucks and all of the coffee in the break room.
Sure.
And you take all that away and then there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at that and we said, well, how else can we start being thankful for our teachers? So and everybody that works on our campus. So we started doing shout outs on the announcements. We did cards from our admin meetings. We did which some of the stuff we still do now. And we did a lot of kids thanking people. We do actually a gifts of gratitude at Christmas time, where people just write to why they're thankful for people. So it was really just giving and just saying thank you for everything that you've done, because teachers are really what helped us get through all of this. And it really showed us that we really do need it. So we've kind of kept it all.
Right. It sounds like in lieu of normal perks or normalcy, gratitude really helped get you guys through it.
Absolutely.
Which is great to hear. Because that's clearly very important to people, even in the face of such dire circumstances.
It is.
So that's great. That's awesome. So as we said, you started in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been there for almost 2 years now. So you're an up and coming leader, I suppose. You're new in a leadership type role. You're young. You're up and coming. So tell me about your biggest fear. What keeps you up? What worries you about being a leader?
So it's not, for me, it's not so much the leading the day-to-day interactions with the kids, the logistics of the school, there are two really big things that I want to work on as a leader. The first, the actual like leadership professional goal for me is to work on talking to other adults. That's not something that I'm really very good at. Sure. I'm good to have like a conversation, like a, hey, how's it going? Right. You know, how's your wife and kids? Like, where are you going on vacation for a break? Like, that's really easy. But having a critical or some sort of, you know, development conversation where it's not like a structure evaluation, I do those for my teachers. But when it's a, hey, something came up, I got to talk to you about it, that's really hard. Sure. That's going to come with experience. My other fear is a personal fear. It's making sure that I have appropriate work-life balance. As I want to do amazing things in school, yeah. I also want to at some point be there for my family. Sure. And be at home and, you know, yeah. be home at 5 o'clock so I can have dinner and, yeah. you know, do all of that stuff, do the whole family thing. Sure. So that's going to be something that I have to work on as I grow in that as well.
So I'm going to play off that family thing, because being a woman in yeah. leadership, mm-hmm. It can be challenging with the traditional roles of a yeah. woman and families and society, and it's 2021. We don't really believe in that stuff anymore, thankfully. Some of us don't. Some of us do.
A lot of us do.
A lot of us do. The older folks tend to.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you about being a woman in leadership. You know, what are some of your biggest? What would be your biggest strength as being a woman in leadership, mm-hmm. and then what would be your biggest weakness of you being a woman in leadership, of a woman being in leadership, in your opinion? So, biggest strength, biggest weakness.
My biggest strength being a woman in leadership is definitely having that emotion side to me. I'm not afraid to get on a student's level and have a conversation with them. Yeah. I'm not afraid to close my office door, even with a teacher that's just angry, sure. and say, vent to me. Mm-hmm. What's going on? Yeah. They wouldn't do that with a male at all. Yeah. I actually distinctly remember doing that with one of our coaches this year. He was just angry because my principal said something to him and it made him really mad. And he was just like, I could just tell he was angry. And I said, close my door. What's wrong? And he told me. And
he wouldn't have done that if I was you and I was a male. He wouldn't have felt. Mm-mm. Well, that definitely is a strength.
No.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate that I listen to them too. Yeah. That's not. I know my principal he's an amazing leader, but I know he doesn't do that as much as I do.
Sure.
My greatest weakness is probably not being able to make it accurate, like being super confident in my decision.
Sure.
I always want to ask, oh, is this okay? Right. I always want to go to my male boss and say, sure. Hey, is this all right? Like, did I do this okay? Or constantly ask him for feedback. And I know that in being an up and coming leader, I want to ask for that and get that feedback, but I do need to grow in my confidence in that.
Sure. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That makes total sense. That could be challenging for sure. I could see that.
Yeah, I definitely need to grow in my confidence, and that's definitely going to come with more experience. But as a leader, especially, and I'm also in secondary education. Sure. So I'm with, teenagers, and it's a predominantly male-driven leadership field. Yeah. So you kind of have to. I definitely have to grow in getting some masculine leadership qualities. I can't be all cutesy and adorable all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I totally get that. That makes total sense. So, all right. So we talked about all that. So I want, with all that being said, like we said, up and coming leader, woman leader, young, successful. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, I hope you feel successful as well. What would be the biggest tip that you'd be able to give someone such as yourself, who's up and coming into a leadership role for the first time?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I know you asked for one, but I'm gonna give you two.
That's great.
So
Two's good.
And it's also, it's the personal side and the professional side. So the personal side of me is something that I just neglected to do, especially in my 20s, when I was just like, I'm gonna change the world.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna change the world. You can try, but it's not gonna happen. That's the reality. But is take care of yourself. You definitely need to take care of yourself. Make sure, figure out what fitness routines, how you're gonna eat, like all of those things that I wish I would have done and known in my 20s. I wish I would have, I wish I would have done a little sooner.
Yeah.
Sleep. The basic things that people just don't do anymore. They're like, oh, I gotta work.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's also okay to not have your work email on your phone.
Sure.
Just a fun fact for you.
Hey, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah. So the other my professional leadership tip is don't forget where you came from. It's remember the times that you were grinding and just like everybody else, and be grateful for the people that are supporting you, and always be grateful and be kind.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. I mean, I feel like those tips should be helpful not only in leadership, just in general, in the professional world. Well, thank you for giving me. You're an administrator, so thank you for giving me some time this weekend. Some of your off time to have these conversations. I think so I find them very helpful. Hope our audience finds them very helpful as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we got, I think. So thanks for joining us this week on Conversation with Horned Frogs.
Yes,
thank you, Megan, for
thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Horned Frogs have very different experiences. Obviously last week we spoke to someone in the business world. Now we're speaking to someone in education. So there's different leadership styles, different things work. And we're super glad you were able to join us this week. And we hope you can join us next week. We'll talk more leadership. We'll talk more strategies. We'll talk more stuff like that. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.